Welcome to Dakhla, Morocco, for the fourth and penultimate stop in the kitesurf discipline on the Qatar Airways GKA Kite World Tour. The tour is making a return to this renowned point break at Oum Lamboiur on the edge of the Sahara Desert. This season, the fight for the championship crowns is finely balanced, with all the leading protagonists suffering mixed fortunes at the opening three stops. A strong showing in Dakhla's right-hand waves in the pure surfing format is more important than ever for the leading challengers if they are to keep their title hopes alive. The stage is set for some epic contests in the long, shoulder-to-head high swells to decide who will come out on top. The best female kitesurfers in the world showed up in Dakhla, eager to battle in the legendary conditions. The competition for the world title is tight at the top, with any of the athletes capable of causing an upset. If any of the leading contenders have an off day, that possibility adds spice to an already mouth-watering competition. Almost immediately, Hawaii-based Muna White showed why she is at the top of her game in the waves. Her fluid carving and perfect timing were obvious in the smaller swells. White was up against Italy's Barbara Sardello, who's an experienced kitesurfer, and Charlotte Carpentier from France. White put some solid numbers on the board and then impressed the judges with one wave that earned an 8.73 out of a possible 10. Carpentier got lots of work done though, with some great vertical attacks. But White backed up that big wave score with another perfectly timed attack on the lip. With some solid scores on the board, White took the heat win. France's Clémence Derrien and newcomer Astrid Chelus were up next. They were matched in a heat with the tour leader, Capucine Delanoy. The 17-year-old Delanoy is the reigning kitesurf world champion, but she opened the heat slowly as she searched for set waves. Derrien was able to keep the teenager in her sights as she found a number of good waves that she was able to work and get good solid scores from the judges on. Chelus, a freeride skiing champion, took a little longer to find her feet, but relished the chance to learn from the world's best. Delanoy soon found her rhythm though, and as one of the most accomplished kitesurfers in the world, once she'd found her stride, the heat win was always going to be hers. The Italian Sofia Monti found herself facing Zoe Basile from France in the first of the quarterfinals. The pair went wave for wave, though the swell was dropping at the turn of the tide. Both hunted for the set waves and made the most of the conditions with committed surfing. Basile had taken the third podium spot at the last tour stop in Sylt, Germany, and got her nose in front on the scoreboard here in Dakhla, working every wave that came her way. Monti did her best to get back on terms, but struggled to find good waves. As she pushed, she overcooked one wave and crashed. Basile, meanwhile, kept the pressure on and ended up taking the win to advance to the semi-finals. The second quarterfinal saw Clémence Derrien on the water, and she lucked into some bigger shoulder-high sets and got some very solid scores from the judges for her controlled surfing. But Derrien was matched against Muna White, whose wave selection and powerful rides were, as always, rewarded. Derienne kept pushing and tried desperately to match White. Both of the women's fluent carving linked the sections of the waves and put big numbers on the board. But White's longer rides, taking them all the way to the beach, were the telling factor. Despite a valiant effort from Derienne, it was a fall at the end of the heat, combined with a 7.77 for Muna White, that saw White advance to the semis. Quarterfinal number 3 pitted the Swiss athlete Camille Losserat against Brazil's Serena Luz. As a goofy-footed rider, the Swiss athlete was riding backside. With the cross-offshore breezes, that's quite a tricky proposition. But it was Luz who came unstuck. Losing contact with her board momentarily, she crashed. The pair were locked together on the scoreboard. Though Luz had got a good early score on the board, she couldn't back it up with another high-scoring ride, and that allowed Losserat into the game. And eventually, she chalked up a couple of good scores for her 2 counting waves. Losserat would take the win by less than half a point, but it was enough to see her through to the semi-finals.
Well, I wasn't expecting to go to the semi-finals. I thought I was losing because she was ripping out there, Serena. So yeah, really happy to go to the semi-finals, and we'll see.
The last quarter-final was an all-French affair between the slight figure of Charlotte Carpentier and world champion Capucine Delanoy. Carpentier gave a good account of herself, working the faces and making snappy turns in the pocket of the wave. But Delanoy's surfing is fast improving, and she managed some big carving hacks, linking sections of the wave and working the faces far into the beach.
Make the most of it. I know we will dance and sing. There's a heat wave. There's a heat wave rolling in.
As the heat wore on, Delanoy's wave selection only got better. She seemed to go from strength to strength. Delanoy put some solid scores on the board that saw her take a comfortable win over Carpentier and a place in the semi-final. The first semi-final pitted Muna White against Zoe Basile. White's rail-to-rail riding, carving hacks and snaps in the critical section of the wave was some of the best surfing of the whole competition. The US athlete making bottom turn after bottom turn and using that power to hit the lip, throwing buckets of spray as she engaged the fins. Basile did her best to keep up and put some big numbers on the scoreboard. But White was on fire, and her experience in the waves was just too much for the Frenchwoman. With a remarkable 9.5 and 8.93 waves on the board, she romped to victory with a heat total of 18.43.
That was definitely one of the best heats that I've ever had. The waves are just firing right now. There were so many sets in that heat, so yeah, I got a bunch of good waves. I was just having fun out there, really. It was awesome.
The other semi-final was a rematch of the Germany Tour Stop final with Capucine Delanoy facing Camille Losserat. Losserat was at a distinct disadvantage riding backside, especially as the wind had shifted even more offshore. But the Swiss rider made the best of the conditions nonetheless, Losserat making long flowing carves and picking off a couple of those shoulder-high set waves that offered the longer rides. In contrast, Delanoy was surfing more vertically, making her turns in the pocket of the wave, where they're at their steepest and most powerful. Delanoy got some decent numbers for her effort, a 6.83 and a 6.5 for her 2 counting waves, and it gave her a second straight win over her Swiss rival Losseran.
Again, it's the final against Muna, and yeah, I'm super happy to be in the final with her. I'm gonna do my best and have fun.
The stark desert shoreline was a fitting backdrop for the showdown of the final between Capucine Delanoy and Muna White. Both athletes charged the waves with ferocity in their quest for the win in Dakhla. And conditions were almost perfect. Delanoy did her utmost to stay on terms with her opponent as the pair went toe-to-toe. Delanoy's surfing was good, driving her board off the lip with a fully committed bottom turn on the long wave faces. But towards the end of the heat, White put the hammer down when she got her 2 best waves, including one of 8.97. White's heat total of 17.37 out of 20 for her 2 counting waves gave her a convincing victory.
I'm so stoked to take first place here in Dakhla. It was a really good event for me. I had a lot of fun. The waves are exactly the conditions I like. Right hand point break with side offshore winds, and yeah, the first couple days were small, but this finals day was amazing waves. Yeah, solid waves, and the girls were ripping, so it was yeah, a tough event, but I'm stoked to take the win.
I'm happy to come second. Like, I'm not really happy to come second, but I'm really happy about my riding. I felt like I could really show out there what I could do on the waves, so that was great. And I had a lot of fun today. The conditions were amazing, and I was just really happy to be in the water. Muna took the win. She was ripping, and she really deserved it.
The men's competition featured 28 of the world's greatest kitesurfing athletes, including the top seeds who were hoping to advance their bids to win the World Championship crown. The lineup also included a handful of aspiring local Moroccan riders with knowledge of the Oum Lamboiur break. The Moroccan number 1 Mohamed Ali Bakali, Cape Verde's Yuri Neves, and Mounin Marji were the first up. Al-Bakali immediately put his knowledge of Dakhla's conditions to good use and showed why he'd finished high in the rankings in last year's event. But his fellow countryman Marji demonstrated he was up for the fight and wasn't going to surrender easily as he worked the faces with his smooth riding. In the steep head-high right-handers, Ali Bakali was in his element. He charged the waves with style and power, relentlessly smashing the lip and throwing white water everywhere. He made turn after turn to overhaul his compatriot and take the win. Pedro Matos took to the stage against the South African powerhouse Matt Maxwell and another Moroccan standout, Ashraf Bantajar. The young Brazilian Matos quickly showed his single-minded focus as he ripped the waves apart. His immense skill and timing also illustrated why a firing Oum Lamboiur break is a world-class wave that seems to go on and on as it curls into the bay. Matos and the swell were in perfect unison and he scored well. But in the end, it was only a fraction of a point ahead of Maxwell in the heat, and it was a sign of things to come. Matthew Lopez, winner of the season's opening two events, was against Gray Foster and GKA debutant Ofek Shalgi. Lopez opened up in style with vertical snaps and big carves. He attacked every face, putting pressure on his rivals. The US athlete Foster did his best to answer the challenge, but struggled to match Lopez. The Israeli athlete Shalgi came to Dakhla to learn from the best. The Cape Verdean Lopez, who plies his trade under a Spanish flag, was moving through the gears. He signalled his intent with big scores from his two counting waves. He took his heat total to 15.43 out of 20, enough for a comfortable win that ensured he would advance. The Brazilian big hitter Sebastian Ribeiro was to face the fast improving surfer Camille Delanoy and local favourite Abdu Mutawakil. Francis Delanoy, the brother of Capuchin, is a strapless freestyle specialist, but is fast improving in this pure surfing format. The Moroccan athlete Mutawakil demonstrated his local knowledge of the break, which has three distinct sections, and he was able to link these with huge hacks. It was the Brazilian Ribeiro, though, who exploited the waves for all they were worth. Taking no prisoners, he slaughtered the faces. His hacks and smacks off the lip threw buckets of spray as he rode all the way down the line. They earned him two 8+ wave scores from the judges that easily gave him the win and saw him advance to the next round. The heat with Clement Rosero, Ayrton Cozzolino and Yuri Neves was bound to produce sparks. Cape Verdean Cozzolino came out and slayed the waves with his immense power. His bottom turns and hacks characterised his drive and desire to win here in Dakhla. The Cape Verdean Neves did his best to keep up, but wasn't in quite the same league as his rivals. The big surprise was that the top-ranked Cozzolino couldn't quite find his grooves or the waves he needed, and at the end he fell behind on the leaderboard. As Cozzolino faltered, the Frenchman Rosero rose. A big wave surfer and wing foiler, he charged the long waves. Riding backside, the judges loved his style and awarded him the highest wave score, an 8.13, which tipped the heat in his favour. Ayrton Cozzolino's defeat left him in the unusual position of fighting for survival early on in the contest. He came up against the local rider Hamza Adi. The earlier slip-up seemed to have lit a fire under Cozzolino, and he didn't make the same mistake twice, destroying the waves with his powerful brand of surfing. Out of his 10-wave attempt, he earned 4 8+ scores from the judges, though only the best two counted. He burst the fins out continuously as he slashed the waves, throwing in reverses on the smaller waves in search of the scores he needed. Cozzolino's 8.8 for one wave took his heat total to 17.3, giving him a critical win. Pedro Matos is a man on the move. The young Brazilian faced Arsenio Diaz. Matos came into the competition ranked number 3, and his pulsating wave riding was stunning in its energy and precision as he worked the swell, never straying far from the critical section as he slammed in turn after turn. The Cape Verdean Diaz did his best, but couldn't quite compete. And so Matos put down a marker for the rest of the field. His fully committed, rail-to-rail surfing was intense. And that helped him link all three sections of the wave, and it ensured he won some huge points. His top two scores were 8.97 and 8.5. Those scores buoyed Matos' confidence and booked him a place in the quarterfinals. Ayrton Cozzolino's advance earned him a showdown with his old sparring partner, Matthew Lopez.
I'm feeling good. I know it's a very important heat.
I think I can do this thing and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do all it takes to take it back.
Once again, we could see the fire in Ayrton Cozzolino's eyes. But Matthew Lopez had won the last two encounters between the pair. Cozzolino started off with easy, laid-back hacks, while Lopez struggled to lock into set waves. Adding aerial manoeuvres, powerful style and true Cozzolino drive, Ayrton advanced and in the process took another small step in the race for the World Championship title.
I did what I could. I couldn't find a good wave, a big one to open up and do what I needed to do. No hard feeling, bro. No hard feeling, bro.
This was, for me, was the final, man. I was so nervous.
It's what it is. He deserves it. He's ripping. I'm happy.
You know, but yeah, it's not over yet, man. I still have to do my job.
The most important thing, I had a lot of fun and I'm very happy about it.
Going into the semi-finals, we saw the top four riders coming together, and make no mistake, there was a fire and intensity out there on the water. Semi-final number one saw Pedro Matos and Ayrton Cozzolino face off. These guys have been up against each other time after time. Matos came out charging, absolutely crushing the waves. Cozzolino took up the gauntlet, but found himself trailing under Matos' barrage. Wave after wave, Matos pounded Cozzolino into submission, breaking out the fins and throwing spray everywhere. He kept pushing, and with an utterly thrilling display, it was the Brazilian's flowing, surfy, rail-to-rail style that connected the waves all the way down to the beach. It was breathtaking. His score of 8.67 blew Cozzolino out of the water and took the Brazilian to a heat total of 16.47 and earned him a spot in the final.
Mindset is keep doing the same thing I'm doing since the start and like put the scores together and start building the scores and hopefully take the win.
The second semi-final was the heat of the underdogs, South African Matt Maxwell and Frenchman Clement Rosero, battling their way to the top of the ladder against the odds. The flow and laid-back style of the South African had cast aside a number of big names on his path to the semi-final. But Maxwell's heat was a contrast to the snappy and stylish backside riding of the Frenchman Rosero. It was to be a tight battle between a pair of two very evenly matched athletes. But in the closing moments of the heat, Rosero logged one of the best backside waves of the contest. It gave him the win by less than a point and landed him a spot in the grand final for the very first time.
No plan, just I want to push all the water that it's gonna be stuck on my fins. I can push stronger, I can go stronger.
As the sun started to set, the golden hour approached for the grand final. Pedro Matos and Clement Rosero for the very first time together, battling it out for the win. Matos was out of the blocks fast, putting some big numbers on the board at the outset. His high-energy surfing and powerful hacks all the way down the line were loved by the judges. Rosero was not giving up easily though and had a few big moves of his own that helped him to stay in touch on the scoreboard. The Brazilian Matos only seemed to charge harder and harder. He destroyed wave after wave with his radical turns, carves and hacks. He even threw in a couple of reverses as the sun dipped towards the horizon. In the end, it was Matos' rail-to-rail surfing style, power and flow that helped him to his first ever World Cup event win. It was an emotional victory for the young Brazilian who has long dreamed of this moment.
Yeah, it's my first ever GKA event. I'm like dreaming right now, like such a dream being here, win this competition, like win my first event. When it all comes together, sometimes your mind can trick you, and today my mind helped me a lot. And I was just there like trying to do what I know how to do it, and it comes together and I got the win. Like, what can I ask for?
Dakhla once again offered up the perfect stage for the world's best kite surfers to fight for supremacy. Pedro Matos took his first ever win and is now well placed to challenge for the title on home waters at the final tour stop in Brazil. Muna White got herself back on top of the rankings, but could be handicapped by a change of format in Brazil. Join us again to find out who comes out on top.